Hello, everyone. It's Deb Blum here. I am super excited to come back today and be talking today with Jennifer Ozgur. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Sure. Yes. Fine.
All right, great. Do you want to say it just so everyone knows?
Ozgur. Yeah. I can't
Ozgur.
even say, my husband's from Turkey, so I don't do the Turkish accent. So Ozgur suffices.
Oh, yeah. You know what? You did write rose fur. That was good. I should have known that. Okay. I got a little nervous there for a second. So anyway, Jennifer, great to have you here. And hello.
Hi. Thank you for
Hi.
having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great. Well, so I'm going to let you do a little introduction, but I know that you do some parent coaching. You're a facilitator. You run large events. You're an author. You're an author. You an author?
I am. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And also an educator. For many years, you're an English teacher in the high school, which is great. And I am going to let you talk a little bit more about that and what you do, and then we'll start chatting about our really cool visions for our education system.
Great. I'm excited. So where to start, I guess, would be that, I was teaching for a while. I started in 2000. And then in 2005, my daughter was born. And I was finding that when I was home with her, and she was itty bitty, she was not even 5 pounds when she was born. So I was sitting there and I would be kissing her all the time. And I said to myself, you know what? I must have kissed you 1,000,000 times by now. And being an English teacher and thinking, well, let me think about that math. How much is 1,000,000? When I was a kid, I remember, like, if you took a bunch of 1,000,000 basketballs, it would, like, go to the moon and back. So I'm like, okay, how much is 1,000,000? And then I realized if your child lives with you for about 18 years times 365, divide that by 1,000,000, it's 153 kisses a day. And I thought, that's not actually inconceivable. You could do that.
Right.
You could make a commitment to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was like, okay, well, why would you want to kiss your kid 1,000,000 times? And then I started researching oxytocin and the bonding chemicals and the hormones of dopamine and everything that makes you feel good. And I started geeking out on neuroscience and, why when a woman is nursing her child, the way you're put together as mother and child is so that bonding with the eye contact and to be able to put your face next to theirs and helps the antibodies with the immune system and just all these things. And I was like, wow, this intelligent purpose of why we kiss one another and hold one another and that human contact. And I started to think more about being proactive as a parent, as a teacher, and seeing so many things in my classes where there may be warning signs and something, and you want to, head things off at the pass. And I was just really feeling passionate about this proactive mental health movement. And then that notion, I actually turned into a poem, which then some children's book company said, oh, we'd love to pick it up as a children's book, which led then to me taking a sabbatical to market myself as a children's poet. And then that opened up doors to me getting more training and be a certified trauma responsive, culturally responsive educator. And then that led to me being trained in appreciative inquiry as a facilitator. And here we are, a decade later or more. And now with the COVID situation, I've actually been brought on to consult and facilitate with South Dakota Head Start Association to bring their statewide programming. And I'm speaking at CASA, which is Court Appointed Special Advocates, and speaking in Baltimore. And the more I'm meeting people and feeling more clarity on my mission, my purpose, more doors are opening up where I'm really wanting to take all of this knowledge, this training, the capacities that I have to start to transform the way we teach, the way we decide how we teach, and to really revolutionize the education realm And now with this COVID situation, and we're in this change, we're in this state of flux and transition, I'm really seeing it as opportunities that will take us to places that I'm very excited about.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, so maybe we can start by talking a little bit about what those places are that you see it taking us. Specifically what you're inspired about because of the COVID situation.
So where I see, because there's so many, like, what do I want to talk about first? But the strength-based training and the where you look at your strengths, where those high point moments are, and to analyze that with as much passion, trying to seek as much clarity about what is working, why is it working that way, what are those components, and then how might we take those same structures, systems that are in place, those adjectives, the descriptors, and put them in areas that we can see more growth. So for example, right now, you could see it as a crisis. And with respect to a lot of people who are suffering right now, it is. And there are also, despite those challenges, opportunities where people are stepping into their greatness, understanding how resilient they are. And so to ask people, within the past 4 weeks since the school shut down, how have you seen yourself grow as an individual, stepping into your greatness as a parent? Think of some moments where you were connecting more deeply and powerfully than you ever have before with your child. What was going into that? How might we see more of that? And to the same respect with teachers right now, we're pivoting, we are being flexible, we are being innovative. How might I take that group project that I started May 10th or March 10th and continue that at home? How might I trust my students to collaborate and be creative and collect all these case studies, if you will, of excellence under pressure? And then once this crisis subsides, how can we capitalize on that? How can we reflect back to those moments and integrate that into our new operating system?
I like it. I just like that as a general way of looking at this, even though I'm a pretty optimistic person and I try to see what's good in things. I like the idea of this strength-based perspective, and even, asking my kids what they've had to, change and cultivate in themselves to be able to deal with this situation. So that's great. I really like that. So maybe what you could do is, maybe you could tell me what you're seeing as a teacher and an educator and someone who also is in the space of transformation, what you're seeing as patterns that are things that you feel need some attention in our schools, say before all of this happened.
Well, my passion, my backstory, as I told you before, is proactive mental health. Social emotional learning is a big buzz phrase right now, but to truly practice that with clarity, with integrity, with authenticity, that I would love to see, where social emotional learning is truly infused within the culture of schools. To that end, I have the capacity and ability and know-how to take social emotional learning that you would do for professional development in the classroom at a faculty meeting, half day, full day, and bring that online. I am a vendor for a major school district for parenting programming that I design and deploy for tens of thousands of families in Philadelphia. And a lot of things are being canceled right now. My perspective is it's easy to take it and convert it to behind the screens. And right now, I understand people are putting out fires. They're in problem-solving mode. And I empathize where they are just like running in a thick, thick fog and they can't see 2 inches in front of them and they're just going and going. And what I have the ability to do, because I'm not one of those decision makers, I understand that, but I can go and kind of hit pause on it and go above the clouds and see down. And I have that high level macro view. And I reach out and I'd say, I'd love to do this. I'd love to do that. Can I help you? How can I support you? Blah, blah, blah. And they're saying, well, parenting programming right now isn't our top priority. So parents are at home with their children. Parents are trying to co-teach along with teachers. They're trying to have their jobs. Everyone's cooped up. Emotions are running high. Tell me why that at this moment, parenting support is the least priority.
Mm-hmm.
Opposite. It
Yeah.
should be top priority. How are you doing? How can we support you? In a strength-based way, because the strength-based is addictive in a good way. Admiring a problem, perseverating on that, and playing that loop is addictive too. Whatever you see, you continue to see. Whatever, if you look for it, you will find it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, give me just a little gratitude on something, and then when you look for that, it will expand. And people, that does not come naturally. Our society makes money off of problems. We are trained to see problems and solve problems. When you eliminate the problem, at best, you get to neutral and lack of a problem. I want more for my children than to just be problem-free. I want them to thrive and flourish. I want them to step into their purpose and live life richly and fully. And that does not come naturally. And right now, I think that's what we need the most.
So you would like to see, so one of the things that you'd like to see happening is that the parents are more supported during this time, and that people, so not just teachers looking for strength-based programming and a philosophy, but parents as well, and being able to help our parents through this time. But also, it sounds like to me, like really at the core of all of this really does come strength-based education. So our children grow up and have this, maybe we have an opportunity to actually change the lens that they look at the world a little bit. Do you find yourself doing that in your classroom? Like, is that part of how you work with your students?
Absolutely. And, you know, changing the lens, I love that wording. And it's a paradigm shift. It's not a teaching strategy. It's not just infusing something within the culture of a classroom. It is a true mind shift. You know, an example would be, as an English teacher, we tend to circle all the red mistakes to the point where there was a movement, don't use a red pen because there's such a negative stigma to a red ink. So then it's like, okay, well then purple's the new red, green's the new red. But if we only highlighted 1 or 2 sentences, you nailed that. That's awesome. I wonder how you could do more of that next time. But you got to teach them about a colon. All right, well, is that going to motivate them? Is that going to make them more passionate about writing? You know, that can come later, but it really creating a sense of curiosity and wonder and play in the classroom. And to say, you know, we're just going to play here a little bit. You know, I wonder what would happen. How might we try that? And so I'm just a guide. And I'm trying to instill in my students curious play within the classroom.
I'm going to suspect that you get pushback from people who might say, well, yeah, but how can you do that? We have so much content to teach. There's so much content to teach. How can you do that when, you know, we just have to be focused and we need to just get through this material? Do you get that type of pushback from either teachers or parents or anyone who's just sort of looking from the outside in?
I could see, I think the way I phrase it now, and the more I am studying it and becoming, I don't want to say a master in it, but I've studied this several years close to source. Like I got my training at Case Western Reserve in Cleveland, Ohio, the birthplace of appreciative inquiry. I met Dr. David Cooper Ryder. So I'm not receiving a watered down version or a misappropriated version of it. So now that I can speak at parent night with authority about it, and have different examples of how students benefit, I think they understand and trust the process, knowing that they'll get a higher return on investment through this approach. So that's one. There's also in tandem right now a movement that our school is embracing, our school district is more student-centered and student choice. So less, we must learn this canonical text because it's always been that way, and here it is. So there is that shift of really motivating the student so that it's intrinsic where they want to learn. And when they want to learn, it goes much quicker. So in that sense, those two go, they're very nice, very compatible.
Well, they are really, they are, but I'm curious. It sounds like you have a school that is a little more forward thinking in that way, but it's not, I don't think I see that happening in a lot of the public schools. I think I don't get the impression that there's a lot of choice. I get the impression that at least in the high school, I know in the middle school, there were more choices, but it feels like in the high school, what my kids are learning is what all the kids are learning in that, in that class. Is that, are you in a unique situation that the school is that way? Or do you see that as a trend that's changing in schools?
I see it as a trend that's changing. First, to admit we are, financially privileged. So we're not in survival mode. We're being able to enhance things. And, it's a double-edged sword. When you have student choice, we're not teaching the same content, but we're getting them all to be proficient regarding the same standards.
Yeah.
Right. So as long as the student is able to read something and reflect upon it and notice authors' choices and how the way they chose certain words or structured a text affects the overall meaning. Do they have to do that with Shakespeare? I'm still a fuddy-duddy, and I'm saying, yes, you have to read Shakespeare by the time you graduate high school. But, in general, if the student says, can I read this book? And you say, would you like to? Yeah. Well, yes, of course. Whereas, years ago, well, I don't know if that's on grade level, and I don't know if that's really rigorous enough. The questions that you ask are the rigor.
Yeah.
Right. There's, I read Beyond Literary Analysis is the book. And to understand that we are in a digital age, and a text is anything that has a beginning, middle, and end that you can analyze. I'm like, so that means the playoffs with the Super Bowl and everything going in, the outcome of the Super Bowl is a text. And to research why my analogy is going to be horrible with football, but to research the teams going into it, who was favored to win, why there was that upset, the controversies going in, why someone wasn't allowed to play, and to analyze that and pull some quotes from different coaches and how did their strategies change given from last year, blah, blah, blah. That is rigor. And that's meaningful. And those skills are useful, as opposed to, what was the relationship between Hamlet and Ophelia, and they can go onto Spark Notes and crank out their, heavily plagiarized paper and call it a day. So I think we're moving beyond some of that old school type of teaching. So the standards are the same. The way we go about it might be different. But to your point, with doing anything that's innovative or cutting edge, there's a very fine tipping point of being innovative and advanced and being ahead of the curve versus, whoa, like, I don't know where you're going with that, because people, it's scary to take a risk.
Mm-hmm.
And if you say, as a leader of a district, of a state, to say, we have an idea and we think it might work and we just want to try this out. No one, it's very hard for someone to say, yeah, I see the potential in that, let's try. And then if it doesn't work out, well, we pivoted, we learned, we'll try. Now, people want to go on record as having successes,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to a step back. So that's where I see some of the issues and the irony that we want innovation in the classroom, but how the decisions are made completely devoid of any innovation whatsoever. And that's like my big soapbox that I'm on right now.
Yeah. So I assume that you're seeing this kind of globally. So what are you actually, what's the soapbox? What is it? Rant.
And I don't want to get into that deficit-based negativity.
Yeah, but I think I
you,
hear what you're saying, but I also think that it's hard for people to understand without knowing. We have to know where
Mhm.
we are so we can go somewhere else. It's really more about the painting the picture of like, where are we and how is this hard? Like, and
Mhm.
why would we want to go somewhere else? You know, what's the invitation to somewhere else? So I'm totally happy for you to go wherever you need to go. If it's
Awesome.
deficit,
Thank you.
that's fine.
So as I look behind you and you have the beautiful windows with the sunlight and the trees, and your windows, of course, because you're filming, are immaculate. Not one smudge, right? Totally on point. Mine are not. I don't notice it that much. I don't realize how dirty my windows are until I take a rag and some vinegar and go, and I was like, whoa, I had no idea how dirty they were and how clean and how much better and brighter my house looks just because I cleaned the windows. And I kind of think that's where we are in education. It's fine. It's working. We can see. But when you realize there's something much more invigorating, inspiring, energizing, uplifting, elevating, it's difficult to look through that dirty window. And I feel that that's where I'm at, where, the industrialization model from the top down, and you have one person or, small people in control, and then they make decisions and they disseminate it and they disseminate it. And by the time it actually gets to the people who've got to do the thing that they decided on, very simple thing. Oh, let's buy new furniture. Okay, we got budget for new furniture. We'll do that. Everybody purchase furniture, beautiful bookshelves and stuff. They get to the teachers. Am I happy for a bookshelf? Yeah, sure, I'm happy for a bookshelf. No one asked the custodian the dimensions. Now we just spent all this money on these bookshelves, and the people who actually have to install it say, we can't do that. We don't have the right drill bits. Right? Like, that's this kind of like, that's a very real example, but that's an inconvenience. That's an ineffective decision. But when it truly involves the welfare of a child,
Yeah.
that's where it's like, when we're trying to do best for children and their families, when was the last time the children and their families were part of the decision-making process when we're trying to reach all of them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That to me is confusing.
So there's some part of this, which is the fact that there's this top-down decision making, which I think a lot of people are grappling with this everywhere, not just in education, right? It's just like this idea of, wait, why aren't more people included in some of the decisions? Why don't we always have the right people at the table? Why are there not students and parents at the table? And if they are at the table, are they really being included? Like, so, because that's one of the things I've seen over these years, is that we have things like site councils and places where parents are with teachers and students are on the board too. But at the end of the day, are they actually decision makers, or are they just, contributing a couple of opinions and then somebody else is still, so there's so still in places where they're trying to do that, I don't know that it's actually as effective as it needs to be. Because what I hear you saying is that there might need to be a much more collaborative approach to the way that we educate our children.
Yes. Relationships are like the number one. Relevance and relationships are the two R's of successful educational system. So if a student is in your classroom and they love that teacher because that teacher says, oh, how was the game? Oh, what movie did you see? And the student really believes that that teacher cares about them. Mm-hmm. That teacher could say, I want everyone to take a purple crayon and you're going to draw a circle and then we're going to do this. And the student will be like, I don't know where we're going with this, but okay, I'll do it because of the relationship.
Yep.
Conversely, the relevance of the material, if you're asking the students to analyze the statistics of the Super Bowl, or, let's take an appropriate psalm that's popular on TikTok right now and see the grammar or whatever, they're all over it. And it doesn't really matter who the teacher is. But when you have those two things together, that's where the magic really happens. And so I'm not seeing relevant decisions being made that contribute to better relationships.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so cool. I really believe that too. I believe fundamentally relationships are where it's at for parenting, for workplaces, for everything. Everybody wants to, it's easy to over prioritize the widget, or it's over prioritize the content or the curriculum. And really at that core, it's the relationship. And then I even have seen that even if you have the relationship and it's not relevant, as you said, the purple crayon with the circle, they're like, oh, okay, you know what, I'll go with it. But it is true. That is the magic. The relevance for kids in particular, but I think for everyone, all human beings, they like to know that what they're doing is meaningful and it matters to them and they can relate to it. And they don't feel like they're like doing something that's a waste of time. And so I'm totally with you. So I guess the bigger question then, like if we go the next level above, like what is your vision? I mean, I get that you're spending a lot of time thinking about this. Like this is super interesting to you and you're passionate about it. Like if you were the czar and you were the head of education in the United States of America, what would you, or even just in your state, let's just say in your state, what needs to happen? Like if you literally were given a blank slate, what would the first couple of things be that you would do?
Orchestrate conversations, create space for all stakeholders to have conversations about topics that are important to them in relation to education. When you carefully craft a question, that's going to predict the outcome. And I think a lot of times we're being given directives in statement form without any direction. So inquiry-based, what I would love is to see a challenge to collect as many high point moments throughout your year of education. What was working really well? What did you love? When were you most proud as an educator? When were you most proud as your students? When did you feel most connected to the successes of your student and their family? What was going on? And to start gathering that data. And then to start bringing people together and say, how might we transfer that into this area or that area? A big movement is equity work, reaching Black and Brown students. We are becoming very aware that Black and Brown students underperform, and that is not an indication of their capacity or intelligence.
Right.
It's a systemic problem, and it's a problem. But there are outliers. There are some students who on paper, if you look at the data, the bubbles that they fill in, they would be underperforming statistically, but they're not.
Mm-hmm.
Do we go to that family and say, I couldn't help but notice, but like, you're crushing it. What is your secret sauce? What are you doing? What are we doing right? Are we doing anything right? Or is it all about you? Please tell us your story. We want to bottle this.
I love it. You know what I love about that is it goes back to the point that, you know, and then that person, that family also they get the benefit of being recognized and being called out on their strengths. And they also, you get the information. And so I like that. I like that I like that your approach has a double benefit. It has the benefit of the immediate person that does the tracking of those strengths. And then it has the benefits of learning from those strengths. That's pretty cool.
And there is, you have to be very strong and confident to realize that you don't know the answer.
Mm-hmm.
So to just say like, I don't know what you're doing, but can you share that with me?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to, well, you know, we had a bunch of people come together in this committee, and after much consideration, we've decided to go with, you know, after surveying you all, we're going with B. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Wow, yeah. That was really quick. The survey, from the time you took the survey to the time you decided to go with B, that was super quick of a turnaround. So, you know, if I had any power to affect change, Ray Dalio's Principles, great book. You know, what are at your core values and how do they align? Transparency, I think, is great. And transparency starts to repair trust that I think has been broken down over time. Mm-hmm. And authenticity. So I would love to be able to have these conversations of, you know, how can we do better? What more can we do? And that any person has the potential to actually have a really good idea. And that could be a kid, that could be the cafeteria worker, that could be a small business owner in town. And when you bring a diverse group of people together, then it's always the sum is greater than the parts, individual parts.
Yep. I agree with that 100%. And I think I see a lot of schools at least bringing some of that in on the student level, but not necessarily on the student level as it relates to curriculum or programming. It's more than the student level as it relates to like, how are we going to do your graduation, or how are we going to do, you know, there are other places. So at least we have examples. It's another place where you have an example where you can go to the kids and say, hey, that seems like that's really working as it relates to this. Now, what are your thoughts? You know, same concept, but what are your thoughts as it relates to either curriculum or the way that you're being taught, or what works for you, what works best for you, what you know, what's really has you lit up and excited to do your work versus the things that happen that you're dragging on. You know, it reminds me though, it brings me to another question, which is I still feel so. It's such an interesting thing. You are so in it and you see it so clearly. But I think that a perception out there is just that nobody knows where to start. It's like the education system needs to be changed, but nobody knows where. Like, some people say, oh, the teachers, they're burnt out. Some people say, nah, it's the students, they've changed, they're just so different, they don't want to do anything. You know, it's like the administrators, oh, you know, they're not, it's too top down, there's not the level of, you know, collaboration. Some people say that it's got to do with the you know, the more like a district level or a town level, or no, they're confined by, you know, textbooks, or there are all these things that keep people, it seems like, keep people stuck in the box of where we are. You know, do you see that? Like how it seems like nobody feels like there's a way to start. I like your approach, but I still even wonder with that, like, who do you go to? Who do you start that with? You know, is that, you know, like, where do you start? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you start where you have control. And with me, it's how I relate to my students.
Yep.
And so that's like proof of concept. oh, wow, how did you get them to be so excited about that? Well, I tried this.
Mhm.
And guess what? You could actually use that in a faculty meeting too. You might want to try it. Because my huge vision is that we make decisions by having summits, educational summits, where you come together, multiple stakeholders, you design questions around a anticipated outcome you would like to have, but with being detached to what that outcome is. You just know you want to level it up. And then you see things unfold in real time, organically. Now, I've actually been talking with some people in my town and doing some mental health work, parenting programming from a strengths-based perspective. And when I was saying, oh, this is my vision, and I see it in like 5-10 years, I see it. And he's like, whoa, 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 slow down. Like, just shift the needle a little bit, because I'm asking to go from like 0 to 10, like that. And so what I think is going to happen in the next couple of weeks in my area is, rather than having your child and anxiety, your child and the dangers behind cell phones, it's resilience.
Mm-hmm.
How can you be resilient? How can you parent through a pandemic? And then, this is kind of cheesy, but like, turn a pandemic into a candemic.
That's cute.
Right? and say, when have you in the past 4 weeks become resourceful, more resilient than you ever thought, and to have conversations with other parents and to create that space for those connections and those heart-centered moments? If you start with the heart and then give a little bit of direction when they're ready for it, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. You got to have space for them to create a safe container for them to open up. They start asking questions and you say, oh, funny you should mention that. I have a slide for that. Boom.
Mm.
Or to say, presuming people are literate and they can read a couple of strategies, here they are. Get with a couple of partners, read through them, and I just want you to play. And in about 20 minutes, I want you to come back and tell me these different ways that you might be able to do this with your family, and have families talk and get together. And you can do that through Zoom with breakout sessions and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hopeful that once we did some back and forth and playing around with the run a show of what we'd be doing for like an hour long behind the screens strength-based resilience program for parents, that's going to happen in a couple of weeks. And when they see how energizing that is, they're going to want more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know what I hear you say, and this is what I believe in, this is what the whole program is about, InsideOut Activism, which is the idea that like you can either go out there and try to change things by just basically saying like, okay, we're going to start at the top and we're going to create this program. And, now Jennifer's the czar and she's going to tell us what to do. Or you start from the inside out, which is what I see you doing, which is you first changed in your own classroom. You decide, you looked in your classroom, you probably, my guess is you first changed in your own self. You're like, oh, wait, I want to do this. Who do I have to be in order to do this?
Mm.
I mean, would you agree that like it kind of does have to start with us as an individual if we want to make change in anything that we want to do?
I mean, that's like, now that you said it, it sounds so obvious, but it's so deep and profound. Yes. I mean, thank you. I mean, that I just want to hold space for what you just said.
Yeah. How did it impact you?
I don't know. I'm getting emotional about it. Maybe what I'm starting to understand is I was there with it and I saw it. And if I'm trying to assert my will onto other people and they're just not there yet, and I'm faulting them for not having the vision that I have, it's what I want is something good, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but to understand that to change any person's mind, where you're asserting, basically I'm asserting my will onto other people. My way's better. Your way's wrong.
Mm.
Um, you know, people do that on Facebook all the time. People argue about politics and who is or is not their president. Um, so it really does start with change starts with from within. Yes. But the application of it, the way you're packaging it or phrasing it, it just seems different to me.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's a different, I think it's both, is what I think. I think that what I see you doing is that you started in your classroom, you started with yourself and you saw something, like something happened in you. And I'd love if you know what it is for you to share it, but there's some way that you gotta, like, you know, you were compelled to do something different. And then it showed up in your classroom in this way that's been so effective. And you've been now in, you know, trainings and all these other ways that you've now been able to see something that you want for other people. You know, you see it's something that you want, something that can be better. And I do believe we're actually all here to shine the light on something that your unique puzzle piece in this universe is this. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't be out there, you know, speaking it, but it is true that ultimately it does start small and often local. And like what you do in your school, when another teacher sees you and says, "Hey, like how did you even get those kids to do that?" And then you share that, that's that moment. That's the moment you talked about. It's like the one that where the teacher, when they're ready, the teacher is there. Like that's what it is. And then maybe it is that the, you know, that you do the parent program, strengths based, the resilience program, and you know, it is a superintendent that's like, that's cool. We need more of that, you know. And then you're, you know, and you're so you're. I actually have the belief, which is that it starts with us, but then it ripples out like this, not in like this. So it ripples out, and that's what I see you doing, is you're rippling it out. So yeah, I mean, I asked you questions about how you would do it if you were the czar, if you had a bigger vision, because I love hearing someone's bigger vision. But I see you also starting, you know, starting here, and then it's expanding.
Yes, and I this popped back into my head, and I kind of want to. I don't know if this is a pivot or not, but as far as like rippling out and connections, and you had mentioned earlier before we started filming that you have a senior,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I don't know if you are open to talk about this or not, but and you mentioned graduation as well, and decisions and how we go about doing things, and the power of asking questions. Has anyone who makes the decisions reached out to your son, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What would you like to do about prom? What is your vision for a graduation? How might we take this time at home and convert it into something we never could have imagined possible? What would you like to see out of the next 4 weeks? We're waving a magic wand and you're getting ready to graduate. And even if you can't go back to that brick and mortar space, what would you like to see happen with your life, with your friends, with your family, with the community, with the school?
The answer is nobody has done it that beautifully, like in a way that feels like it's so connected. There was a survey that went out, but again, it's like what you said, it's like, it's a survey, it's somewhat impersonal, and it's like, does someone already have a decision made? You know, it's the question, is the decision made? And we're just doing this as a formality. But there has been some attempt to do that. But I like what you're saying so much more, which is like, how do we, yes, it's different. We are in a different place. There's no question. We cannot give you what you would have had, but can we create something else? Can we together, co-create an experience for you? So there's some attempts to do it, but what I think that you're highlighting is that there might not be a relational, relevant, and strength-based approach to it. It's sort of, I got a survey as well, and it was saying like, we'd like the leadership team at his high school would like to get feedback from parents as well. And so they asked us what we think. And I didn't even look at the survey yet, but it just came in today. But even in that, it's so easy. I think there's something a little bit different about your approach. And I know it's not your approach, but the approach of a strength-based approach is that it starts from a much more positive, hopeful, optimistic, creating place. And I think too often we start from the complaining place. And that's what you said, the deficit, like a deficit space. And I like having this, like, it feels like a really empowering place.
And the thing too is like a survey is very finite. A survey is, here's these 7 questions. It'll take you a couple of minutes, highly agree, high disagree. And they make the statement, I'm satisfied with the communication that was done between the blah, 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 1 to 5. You're deciding for them what to think about. Whereas, we're going to come together. We're going to, have some brainstorming sessions, and you trust that the people who feel passionately enough to actually show up have great ideas, and there's wisdom and experience there, and to come up with different suggestions and say, okay, sounds good, but wait a minute, we can't do that because that sounds good. How might we do that? I love it. How can we do that? Oh, well, you can't do that because well, how might we though? But how might we?
And I think we just don't have good systems in place to do that yet. People don't know how to communicate to large groups of people other than through surveys. And I'm excited, like you've busted through some of my limiting beliefs around this just in this conversation of like, God, you know what, I'm going to talk to these parents and open up the conversation further, because I can feel myself, I feel like this is my area of expertise, and I still feel myself kind of going, I don't really even know how to coordinate something like that, and so it's like I think people are, to your point before about that, sometimes people just aren't ready, they're not ready. And so you can't make a person be ready. But it's a lot of times it's just that they're not ready. And also we just haven't had the conversation, and so like I might have felt not ready an hour ago, but you and I having this conversation, I'm a little more ready now to say, oh, I might know how to do that. I didn't feel like that was available to me, but now it is. And so I think, I'm hoping maybe more people will listen to you speaking here about this and say, maybe it'll be a principal who's like, wait, I didn't even think about actually maybe calling 20 of the students. And we have a lot of things in place that help, which are like our Redwood TV, which is a TV, like the TV committee, it's all students, or leadership group, all students. And so those kids do get involved and participate in these things. So it is actually, we have a lot of say in our school, and our principal really does care about the kids' opinions. Nonetheless, I don't think it's always easy to do what you said, which is the real collaborative effort, the real bringing them together, and the connection. And the students also don't know. They often are sending out a survey as well, because it's just like, it's a hard thing. Facilitating large groups of people to come to consensus seems like a daunting task for a lot of people.
Who knows what?
The
way the facilitation techniques I was trained to do, and this is getting way more technical than I thought we'd get into, but it's fascinating where it's going, is when you have, I have Post-it notes all around, because this is how I think. And when people write things on a Post-it note and stick it on the wall, and then other people look at them and they vote them up, and you still have a say by saying, I like this one, I like this one. And then you see the one that has the most dots on it. Well, that one won. Okay, great. Mine only got 1 dot. I guess I'm a loser, right? And then you don't get buy-in. But then when the challenge is, okay, we're going to go with the one that has the most dots, but you're going to have, because you will come up with an idea and then you have to like present to them, to the large group in a play, a skit, whatever, a giant poster, and you talk about your vision for whatever it is you're trying to get accomplished for that summit. And so you say, okay, so you go with the one that has the most upvotes, but your challenge is to weave something from all of the other ones into it as well. And how can you do that? And is it a collaborative effort? And then when you have co-facilitators, which know the process, and you have these super participants who are plants in there to make sure that everyone's being brought out. And it is phenomenal to see that. And then when you have the people who are presenting this stuff and people are clapping and high-fiving, and then you take that, and when people go out to lunch and you put those in different corners of the room, I might have loved my skit and that was fun, but you know what? Something over there really stirred something in me. I'm going to leave that. I'm going to, love it, but I'm going to go over here. And then you reconvene and self-organize and have that space to say, I think my strengths and what my superpowers are, even though I feel passionate about this, I'm good with that. It's going to happen. I feel directed to go over here. And then what happens is those 200, or you said 600 parents out of how many percentage, like if it's, 20% involvement in your school, when you then have that coming back into the school, those people saw it happen. They have buy-in, and that's infectious. And you don't have those people who are gonna take it down and want to sabotage it, because there was this integrity and authenticity by the way it happened.
I love that. I really see that as something super important. And I'm really glad that we went into this in this time together, because I think it's a hard thing. I think a lot of people don't know how we will move from this power over dynamic that a lot of us are in a lot of environments where there's a couple of people who are making all the decisions. I think a lot of people just don't know how to move to a place where you could possibly be more collaborative. I think people are trying. I think you look at places like Google and other places, they're coming up with ideas, but it's not widely disseminated. And there are a lot of people who I think might feel intimidated by that process. So it's just nice to know. I think maybe what you're talking about just provides some hope for people to know that there's some other direction.
My mentor works with Google, works with Facebook, BMW, NASA, and they're clients of his. So when you mentioned that, I'm like, yeah, so those are the facilitation techniques I use. And like you were saying with the ripple effect, if I have the opportunity to show that, and then people are interested, we could continue this conversation later, and I could say, if you really are into this, I'll help co-design something with you. We can run that together, and then you know how to do it. And then other people see you doing that. Well, could you do it at our synagogue? Could you do it at our Girl Scout troop? Absolutely. And it just, like you said, that personal contact.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think your passion for this is infectious. And that's what I think is the key. Like, that is my whole thing, is that's who I want to bring on here. The people who say, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to teach. This is what I want to bring to everything. Like, you're not limiting it, saying like, oh no, this is just a parenting thing. This is a parenting thing, an education thing, a corporation thing, a world thing. This is, you could have world power, the world leaders in meetings doing this type of stuff. So it's your passion around it, and I see you applying it to all of these different areas. So I'm really appreciative of what you've shared. Are you doing things where people, do you want to promote where they could find you? Do you have a website that you want to tell people about, and ways that people could connect with you?
Sure. So the website, it's two of my dear friends out in California. We have SEL Solutions, which normally SEL is social emotional learning, but instead of the L for learning, it's leadership, because we want to elevate, all decision makers. So it's SELsolutions.org, which is more information and some visuals about what it looks like, these different summits that we do. professional development. You know, our niche is schools because that's our biggest experience. But also, like you said, corporate and things like that. So it's difficult sometimes to wrap your head around it, but a visual can help a lot. So there's that.
Great. Super. So that's good. And I'll put that in the notes below. And also, is there, I guess, as we're wrapping up, my final question for you is just, is there anything that we didn't touch on that you really would want to share today?
I guess, well, not, I mean, we covered so many things, but I guess a final thought is to, you know, my wish for people is to have the ability to appreciate the beauty in the chaos,
Hmm.
you know, and to trust ourselves, to trust the world. Um, Everything is so much bigger than we think it is. And I don't mean that in a problem based, but you know, to just pause and look beyond. There's a lot of past before us, and there's a lot of future before us, and this moment is just finite.
Hmm.
And to somehow experience this present moment and also the possibilities for the future, and the way it got us here was leveraging the past.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. I think that's really important to help people. I think in this time where it does seem maybe hard, for people, and it can be easy to either long for us to just move through this and like, let's get to the other side and get back to normal. And,
Mm.
instead of, like you're saying, like, be present to this moment, understand, learn from the past, there's so much wisdom steeped in our past, and so many places where we can learn to do better, and also so much opportunity for a future. But really where we're living is in this very, very moment. So I like also the invitation to be trusting ourselves and to just be, yeah, like just be more present to what's happening right now. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I mean, I can say that right now I'm feeling very self-possessed, um, but also knowing that I was having those moments of, you know, on the floor, snot coming out of my nose. I can't do this anymore. A quarter meant something back when there were payphones, and I needed to make a phone call to see if I had work coming in. And, you know, I'm able to be where I'm at right now because I've done so much work, and it is a process.
Yep.
And I'm grateful for whatever moments I can have. And I look forward to more in the future.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been such an honor. It's been so fun to get to know you. I love what you're up to, and just, geez, keep spreading that infectious positivity that you seem to have about seeing those strengths in people and organizations and systems. And it's pretty awesome. So thank you so much.
Thank you for allowing me to geek out, and thank you for being so receptive and open. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks so much. And for anybody who wants to continue to watch more videos, if you click the subscribe button below and the bell next to it, you'll get notified of my videos coming up. And take care. And that's it for today.